So we're already at part 5 of 6 of this interview. And this topic speaks to women in ICT or girls in ICT. Um, and from your perspective, what do you think are the biggest obstacles that women face in the ICT field today?
Oh, that is a great question, and it's one that we need to constantly ask ourselves. My perspective, because I'm a student, is largely centered towards entering the industry itself. And I think there's a twofold obstacle right now, and that is underrepresentation and perceived underrepresentation. As I mentioned previously, I've been to ICT camps for a long while during July, August vacation, and I know that when I went to those camps, there were a lot of girls there. And yet, there's always that underlying sense when you talk about ICT that it's not a field many women will go into. So I think the main challenge that we're looking at right now, especially as we're improving education and that kind of thing, is that we want to avoid a self-fulfilling prophecy for the next generation, that everyone thinks no women go into ICT, so less women go into ICT. And the best way I think you can tackle that would largely be making it seem less extraordinary whenever a girl goes into the ICT field, and also making sure that programs that are developed targeting specifically women in ICT focus not just on entry level education, but continuing education.
Thanks. You raised two very interesting points there. One on perceived underrepresentation, and you also spoke about continuing education in ICT. Could you tell us the reality of you and your studies in your main class? What would you say is the percentage of males to females in this ICT course?
For my engineering courses here at the University of Auckland, I think it's around 40% female. So it's
Okay,
not too bad.
that's it.
And in addition to that, there is also a organization called the Women in Engineering Network that's based here at the University of Auckland. So they run a lot of support groups specifically for women, less focused on making it seem like they need a crutch and more focused on them networking, them meeting each other, and really forming those social bonds in order to continue their education and feel empowered and feel supported. So there is progress being made on that front, I think.
Yeah, I think that actually sounds really hopeful, Sarah, because if it's 40%, that means the girls are very close to closing that gap. And clearly, that perceived gap does not exist there because you're seeing probably almost 60-40 representation where women are in that very close, 40%. So thanks for letting us know what it is actually like. In terms of women in ICT, I want to know, how do you think, and you mentioned it earlier, but you could expand on it a little more, is how can educational institutions better support women who are pursuing careers in ICT?
Sure thing. So again, my perspective would largely be focused more on entry or early careers in
Mhm.
ICT. And I think that it's not something far out there, but making good quality ICT education available at all levels, especially during the beginning of a girl or woman's ICT journey, is very important. And that is essentially what Click to Start does, for instance. But especially in ICT, there is a difference between ICT and other subjects and other fields of study in that not knowing the answer doesn't make you an incompetent professional, an incompetent student in ICT. So definitely before you can teach all of the stuff, you need to have that sense of I can do this fostered in people who are starting out, especially young girls or women, because once you have that, it gives you the confidence to ask the questions you need in order to learn and to reach out to other people who may be more versed in what you're trying to do than you are, because that is a reality in ICT. So again, I think in terms of how educational institutions can better support women going into ICT, largely it focuses on making sure that they have a good quality ICT foundation.
Thank you. What are some initiatives or programs you have been involved in that aim to promote women in ICT?
Well, currently, I have joined a club here at the University of Auckland. It is a branch of an international organization called RoboGals, and they are an international student-run organization that aims to inspire, engage, and empower young women, particularly to consider studying engineering and fields related to that. So, for instance, over the mid-semester break, I helped them run a couple of engineering-based workshops where they go out to primary schools and secondary schools, libraries, and they primarily have interactive, hands-on sessions with a focus on women ages 8 to 18.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you have been maybe a role model? You might not see yourself as that, but just in chatting with you, you are such a role model in ICT and engineering. But how are you able to inspire young women and help to break down that barrier that women or even men have for women entering this field and progressing in this field?
Well, I think, and this may sound kind of Christian, but it's because I am Christian, you live as an example of what you want to see in the world. And in my case, as you said, by being here, I am being visible. I'm a visible sign that there are people here doing this thing, that girls in ICT is absolutely something that should be encouraged. It's something that's happening and it's dynamic and it's growing. And I think that in my day-to-day life, I try to do that as well. I've always been the kind of student who wants to help my friends, who wants to, if you have a problem, or if you're upset about a particular exam question or anything like that, I'm less likely to complain about it with you and more likely to be like, okay, let's go through the exam question together. Because I think that we can always knee-jerk to a negativity response or the idea that that's just the way things are. But I think that the most important thing really is that when we see a problem, whether it's making sure that people feel included, going and talking to someone who looks like they feel kind of out of place, or making sure that people are in the know, they're knowledgeable, that they learn and grow by helping them out when you know the answer and someone else might not, are all valid ways to empower and lead by example.